Well, now I have the data, at least from my companies, and there are a broad swath of companies, probably 10,000 people included in the supply chains for these companies. 55% are not coming back to the office, more than half, not now, not ever. And as a result of that, they've moved to places where they can stay with their families, take care of elderly parents. They've left the city completely. They're never coming back to the office. And as a result, they won't work inside the cities anymore in their little cubicles at the desk because they've proven to the economy they can do it remotely using the technology. Yes, we have disruptions to the supply chain, not just domestically, but globally. But the reason that there is inflation creeping into the system now is we have been pouring money from a helicopter into the economy since the beginning of the pandemic. All the stimulus programs, all the relief programs, we now know at least $1 trillion plus for infrastructure, don't yet know on the social bill. But all of these are very, very liquid events. In other words, pouring money into the system eventually gets into the hands of consumers and they start buying goods and services. Now here's where it gets complicated. The goods and services they want are stuck on a ship outside of the port of Los Angeles for sometimes up to 6 weeks. That problem, while the president has tried to solve it, has not been solved yet. Companies that make things like cars that used to rely on parts that were inexpensive from the Asian market can't get them anymore, and they try and source them domestically at sometimes 30, 40, 50% higher prices. That goes into the product, it raises the prices, and there you have inflation. Now, if you believe the supply chain is going to get repaired, those pressures should come off. My own opinion is that half of the inflation is coming from supply chain issues, and the other half, which is not transitory, which is more permanent, is coming from the fact that consumers are flush with cash and want goods and services like they did pre-pandemic. Well, I think I'm very constructive. I'm very positive. I have investments in over 34 companies that are private in almost every sector in America, almost every geography. The demand equation is insatiable. It's like it was in the 60s, and we have a remarkable situation where the underlying economy is very, very strong. And so the Fed is saying to itself, and they're a very tricky situation, their mandate is to watch for inflation, and they're starting to see it, and they just don't know how much of it is transitory. You've heard that word many times now over the last few weeks. So transitory would mean no problem. As soon as supply chain gets better, these inflationary forces go away and we can stop raising rates, but they don't know that yet. So they've cleared that option, and the market assumes that's going to happen. But I think the more interesting situation is that we don't talk about much. Our American economy now is so productive because of new technologies that were accelerated during the pandemic. Just think of every company, Nike being a behemoth, has said in 5 months they were able to achieve what they thought would take 6 years. They're selling direct to consumers now. They have huge margins on those products, less reliance on retail. And at the end of the day, this makes the company far more effective and constructive with its capital because it has all that data. What size, what color, what style. The whole American economy has gone through this remarkable digital transformation, direct to consumer, that's very, very efficient. And our reliance on using older ways of distribution that are far less effective has been reduced. That's very pro-economy, very pro-S&P. That's why you're seeing the market be so buoyant and optimistic. Margins are higher, productivity is higher, the new Digital America 2.0 is here. And there's two forces at play. First of all, remember, we paid many people not to work, and those programs are just coming off now. September was when some of the checks stopped. So companies that were trying to hire workers, particularly in the restaurant and service industries, were fighting against the government. It was kind of a strange program. Work for the government, do nothing, or work for business. So hopefully that's going to stop. That's number one. But number two, and you may find this statistic rather remarkable, most companies, including mine, tried to determine last December, what number of employees were not going to come back to the office. And we made the assumption, along with many other companies in the S&P, that would be about 15% of the employees. Those that were in accounting, logistics, and compliance, that used to sit in cubicles, wouldn't come back.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
Well, now I have the data, at least from my companies, and there are a broad swath of companies, probably 10,000 people included in the supply chains for these companies. 55% are not coming back to the office, more than half, not now, not ever. And as a result of that, they've moved to places where they can stay with their families, take care of elderly parents. They've left the city completely. They're never coming back to the office. And as a result, they won't work inside the cities anymore in their little cubicles at the desk because they've proven to the economy they can do it remotely using the technology we already talked about. So this has put a lot of pressure on the traditional job markets. The head of my own accounting in my operating company that oversees all of our investments said to me, I grew up on a farm. I'm going back to a farm. I'm going to live on the farm and I'm never coming into the office. If you don't like it, I'm going to work for somebody else. Think about that. That's exactly what's going on everywhere. I actually sold half of our commercial real estate portfolio, not because of the pandemic, because it became too large in terms of our diversification mandates. But then when the pandemic started, we continued to sell down commercial real estate because what are called cap rates, in other words, the value of the building is going down, particularly AAA office in Boston, New York, and other major cities, because you know, the law firms and the financial services companies are cutting their need of real estate. So commercial real estate's in a bit of a funk right now as we try and figure out. The owners of the buildings are very optimistic everybody's coming back. But that's not the only problem. Many of these buildings were built over 20 years ago where their hazmat systems, the airflow systems, the way they work within a pandemic environment is not good enough for people to want to go back into the building. The air circulation isn't filtered and all those things. The washrooms aren't configured for pandemic or for flu, and as a result, millions of dollars have to go back in to change that, and that puts a lot of pressure on it. I want to just say one thing about women in our economy. You might find this interesting. Over the last 7 years, the majority of my returns in my private companies have come from companies run by women. Particularly during the pandemic, they were remarkable in mitigating risk, and that old adage, if you want something done, give it to a busy mother, applies perfectly to small business in America. So now I'm very biased. I generally invest in women-led companies because they return my money back fast.
Do you want to know one thing about crypto? I made over 3,000% in profit in a few weeks. Fact is, the traditional financial system, the traditional money system makes you poor, not rich. If you want to earn $500,000, $1 million, you have to wait until you're 50, 60, 70 in the traditional financial system, and you probably will still be broke. And you will be old. This is not a sexy combination, as you can imagine. But the question is, how can you start in crypto and make these profits? Where to invest? Where to start? My name is Gunnar and I'm from Germany, as you can hear, and things are a little bit different in Germany. More about that later on. Fact is, there are lots of different cryptocurrencies. It's a gigantic universe where beginners and professionals get easily lost. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There are 7 key steps you need to follow to become successful in this market. You have to know them, and if you fail one of them, it's literally impossible to succeed in this market. Just an example, one of the key points is your exchange, and one of the biggest are, for example, Binance and Coinbase. These are trusted and well-established exchanges, but, and this is a big but, you won't find the super profitable coins on those exchanges. The unknown super profitable coins that get gigantic profits are not traded on those kind of exchanges. They are traded on much smaller insider platforms that are barely known. And I can tell you what those super secret exchanges are and why they are so profitable. And another super important thing are the right information sources. The point is, the internet is gigantic. There are hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels, blogs, pages, and much more. And there are also market makers and influencers. For example, Elon Musk, he is not a crypto guy, but the moment he recommended Dogecoin, it went through the roof, to the moon, so to say. But why did he recommend it? Where did he hear it from? He didn't hear it from newspapers. And believe me, he is listening to someone. But you have to know who, and you have to react before he is reacting. This is really, really important. And these are only 2 of the 7 steps you have to follow in order to be successful in crypto. And if you want to know all of these steps in much more detail, and if you want to have a comprehensive checklist, here's what you should do. There is a link below this video. Click on this link and you will get the opportunity to subscribe to my channel. Click on the link and you will see a video where I explain the next steps. So see you soon. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.